Imagine an empire so powerful that even its fall is legendary. The Roman Empire's story has it all. A mythical wolf-raised founder, epic battles, political intrigue, mad emperors, and a finale with barbarians at the gates. It's one of the greatest sagas in history, and it's all true. Legend says Rome began with a case of sibling rivalry. Twin brothers Romulus and Remus, supposedly raised by a she-wolf, set out to build a city together. They argued over the perfect spot, and Romulus killed Remus, naming the city Rome after himself. To boost his new city's population, Romulus then invited a neighboring tribe, the Sabines, to a festival, and had his men kidnap their women. This naturally led to war, but eventually the Romans and Sabines made peace and united. With such wild beginnings, Rome was on its way. For about 200 years, Rome was ruled by kings. Some were wise, others were awful. The last king, Tarquin the Proud, was so bad that in 509 BC the Romans kicked him out and abolished the monarchy. Determined never to be ruled by one man again, they set up a republic with elected consuls and a senate run by the aristocracy. In the early republic, power rested with the patrician nobles. The common folk, the plebeians, had little say at first, and they weren't happy about it. They even walked out of the city in protest until they won some political rights. Over time, plebeians gained representatives, tribunes who could veto laws, and got laws written down. It was still government by the elite, but more voices were heard than in the days of kings. Meanwhile, the Romans were almost constantly at war. By around 275 BC, they had conquered the entire Italian peninsula. Next, they clashed with Carthage, a powerful maritime empire in North Africa. This sparked the Punic Wars, 3 major wars to decide who controlled the Mediterranean. In the Second Punic War, Carthage's general Hannibal did the unthinkable. He marched an army, complete with war elephants, over the Alps into Italy. Hannibal won several big battles and ravaged the Italian countryside, but he never captured the city of Rome. Eventually, Rome struck back by invading North Africa, forcing Hannibal to return home, where he was defeated. By 146 BC, after a Third Punic War, Rome had destroyed Carthage. Legend says they even sowed salt in the soil. With Carthage gone, Rome was the undisputed superpower of the Mediterranean, calling it Mare Nostrum, our sea. Winning an empire is one thing, holding it together is another. The wealth from conquest made Rome rich, but also brought problems. Huge slave-run estates gobbled up small farms, and the gap between rich and poor became enormous. Some politicians tried reforms to help the commoners, but they were killed by elites opposed to change. Meanwhile, ambitious generals with loyal armies were becoming power players. One general even marched his troops into Rome to seize power, a shocking sign that the Republic's rules were crumbling. Then came Julius Caesar. A brilliant general, he conquered Gaul, basically modern-day France, and became wildly popular. The Senate, fearing his ambition, ordered him to disband his army. Instead, in 49 BC, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his legions, igniting a civil war. He defeated his rivals and was declared dictator for life. That title proved ironic. On the Ides of March, in 44 BC, a group of senators assassinated Caesar, fearing he aimed to be king. Legend says his last words were to his friend Brutus, "Et tu, Brute," meaning, "You too, Brutus." Caesar's death plunged Rome into another round of civil wars. After Caesar, his adopted son Octavian and his ally Mark Antony initially joined forces to defeat the assassins. But before long, Octavian and Antony turned on each other. Mark Antony allied with Cleopatra of Egypt. In 31 BC, Octavian's forces defeated Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium. The defeated lovers committed suicide, and Octavian was left as the sole ruler of Rome. In 27 BC, Octavian took the title Augustus and became the first Roman emperor. He kept the Senate and the trappings of the old republic, but he held ultimate power. Under Augustus's rule, the empire entered the Pax Romana, a long period of relative peace and prosperity. He ruled for over 40 years, and when he died, power passed smoothly to his stepson. The Roman Empire was now a stable autocracy wearing a republican mask. Not all of Augustus's successors were as capable. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, the first line of emperors, had its ups and downs. Tiberius, Augustus's stepson, was competent, but grew paranoid and withdrew from public life. Caligula, who followed, started off well and then went mad with power. He allegedly declared himself a god and even talked about making his horse a consul. He was assassinated by his own guards after a short, chaotic reign. Next came Claudius, who turned out to be an effective ruler. He even conquered Britain.
After Claudius's reign came Nero, who took imperial excess to new extremes. Nero is infamous for allegedly fiddling while Rome burned in 64 AD and for brutally persecuting the Christians afterwards. By 68 AD, his misrule led the army and senate to rebel. Facing revolt, Nero killed himself, ending the Julio-Claudian line. After Nero, 69 AD brought the chaotic Year of the Four Emperors, as one contender after another vied for power. Stability returned when the fourth general, Vespasian, secured the throne. Emperor Vespasian was a down-to-earth leader who restored order and started building the Colosseum to entertain the masses. When Vespasian died, his son Titus became emperor. Titus had a brief but eventful reign, dealing with the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, which buried Pompeii, and a plague. But he handled these disasters well and was loved. After just 2 years, Titus died and was succeeded by his brother Domitian. Domitian was an efficient ruler, but also authoritarian and paranoid. He strengthened the economy and defenses, but he demanded to be called Lord and God, which did not sit well. He executed or exiled those he suspected of disloyalty. In 96 AD, Domitian was assassinated in a palace conspiracy, ending the Flavian dynasty. Then came a stretch of remarkably good leadership. The 5 good emperors, 96 to 180 AD. Each emperor was adopted based on merit, ensuring competent rule. Under these emperors, notably Trajan, Hadrian, and Marcus Aurelius, the empire reached its peak. Trajan expanded Rome's borders to their furthest extent, conquering Dacia and pushing into the Middle East. Hadrian pulled back on conquests and fortified the frontiers, building Hadrian's Wall in Britain to keep out barbarian raiders. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, spent his reign defending against invasions and dealing with a plague, all while pondering wisdom in his Meditations. This era was the high watermark of Roman stability and prosperity. Marcus Aurelius was the last of the 5 good emperors. Unfortunately, he left the throne to his son Commodus, who quickly proved to be nothing like his father. Commodus was vain and obsessed with gladiator games. He even fought in the arena himself, staging victories. He neglected governance and indulged in ego trips. Eventually, in 192 AD, his fed-up inner circle assassinated him. With Commodus gone, the golden age of Pax Romana truly ended. The 3rd century AD was a nightmare for Rome. The empire was plagued by constant civil wars, barbarian invasions, plagues, and economic breakdowns. Emperors rose and fell at a dizzying rate, some reigning only months before being overthrown or killed. At one point, the empire even split apart temporarily into 3 competing states. It was a near-death experience for the Roman state, but somehow it survived the chaos, at least in a shrunken form. Stability was restored by Emperor Diocletian in 284 AD. He reorganized the empire's government to prevent future crises. He established the Tetrarchy, rule by 4, splitting power between 2 senior emperors and 2 junior emperors in the East and West. This system brought stability for a time and made governing the huge empire more manageable. Diocletian also reformed the economy, even setting fixed prices by law, and harshly persecuted Christians in a last attempt to bolster the old pagan religion. After 21 years in power, Diocletian did something unheard of. He voluntarily retired in 305 AD, stepping away from the throne. After Diocletian, another power struggle ensued. Out of it emerged Constantine the Great. By 312 AD, Constantine had eliminated his rivals in the West, and he credited the Christian God for a key victory that brought him to power. He eventually reunified the empire and made 2 momentous changes. He legalized and promoted Christianity, becoming the first Christian emperor, and he shifted the empire's focus eastward. In 330 AD, Constantine officially moved the capital to Byzantium, a city he rebuilt and renamed Constantinople. This new eastern capital grew into the heart of the later Eastern Roman Empire. Meanwhile, the Western Roman Empire was crumbling. By the late 4th century, the empire was permanently split into Western and Eastern halves. The West, poorer and weaker, struggled to fend off wave after wave of barbarian invasions. In 410 AD, the Visigoths under Alaric sacked the city of Rome, the first time in 800 years that Rome had fallen to an enemy. The Vandals later seized North Africa and sacked Rome again in 455. By then, the Western Empire had lost most of its territory and was a shadow of its former self. The final curtain came in 476 AD. The last Western Roman emperor, a teenage boy ironically named Romulus Augustulus, echoing the name of Rome's founder and its first emperor, was overthrown by a Germanic chieftain, Odoacer. Odoacer didn't bother appointing a new emperor. He just took power in Italy. To many historians,
this event marks the end of the Western Roman Empire. One of history's greatest empires had fallen. The Eastern Roman Empire, later called the Byzantine Empire, survived for nearly 1,000 years more, preserving Roman law, culture, and Christianity.